Hey Gator fans. Alright, before I get started on this video, I just want to say happy 4th of July to everybody out there that's watching this. Normally, most people don't work on 4th of July, but you know what? I wanted to make this 4th of July a productive one, so I'm going to see if I can upload a couple of videos by the end of tonight. Currently, right now, at the time of me recording this, it's 3:20 p.m. And I want to talk in this video. I'm going to talk about what I think are what I think is the game on Florida's 2025 schedule. Excuse me, that is the most important of the year. Billy Napier heading into year four was given another year to show something as the head coach of Florida by athletic director Scott Strickland. Um, Florida finished on a four game winning streak. Their recruiting skyrocketed towards the end of the year, salvaged itself from being in the 60s per 247 Sport to actually finishing in the top 10. And that Florida's heading into this season with a lot of hope. They have a lot of returning production this year from last year with seniors like Austin Barber and Jake Slaughter and Caleb Banks and Tyreek Sapp and a lot of productive players at multiple levels of the football team. Probably could still use some depth at certain areas, just like a lot of teams. But overall, they have over 60% returning production from last year, and that's big for a head coach heading into year four. Obviously, we know that the Gators have a tough schedule and this upcoming season, but now we're going to talk about what games that I think that are the most important for the Florida Gators this season. So starting right here with long number 12 is obviously Long Island. Long Island FCS matchup. FCS team. I didn't even know Long Island had a university football team until this past year. It was originally scheduled to be Florida A&M or FAMU for short, but schedules got changed. Then I have that number 12, and I have USF the following week at number 11. Obviously, those are your two most likely victories in their non-power four opponents. So you're not going to have them ranked as high as you do your non-power four, your non-conference power four opponents or your conference opponents. So you're not going to have them listed high at all. So obviously, those two are at the bottom. LIU at number 12, USF at number one. USF famously almost upsetted Florida a few years ago in week three of the 2022 regular season, which was Billy Napier's first season at Florida. I don't think Florida's going to go through the same struggles with them this year that he did in that year as well. Number 10, Mississippi State, the most likely, I say the highest likelihood of victory in your conference opponents. You play them a week before your second bye week, which then leads to your Georgia game and then the final five games of the season. Mississippi State is the final game in a 3 week stretch where Florida faces Texas, Texas A&M, and Mississippi State. That I think Mississippi State's the homecoming game for Florida this season. I have them at number 10 because obviously you should beat Mississippi State pretty handily, better than you did last year. I know 45-28 last year looks like a dominating victory for Florida, but they kind of let Mississippi State hang around a little bit too much for my liking. This should be a very dominating game for Florida. Number 9, above Mississippi State, I have Kentucky. I have Kentucky above Mississippi State because I think those are your two likeliest victories in conference play. But the only reason why I must say Kentucky is a little bit more important because it's down that final 5 game stretch. It's on the road. Kentucky fans sell out the stadium whenever it's Florida, Tennessee, Louisville, or even Georgia heading into Lexington. And Florida has had a tough time with Kentucky over these last few years. So I can imagine if Florida fans would have this game circled way more than the previous three that I just mentioned. At number 8, Ole Miss. To me, I think this game is a trap game. Right after you're playing Kentucky on the road, you got you're going to be visiting Ole Miss on the road before your Tennessee and Florida State games, and having them directly in the middle of that 5 game stretch where you're facing Georgia and Kentucky on the road, and you're playing on the road at Ole Miss, and then you have your final two home games against your two of your three biggest rivals in Tennessee and Florida State at home. I think this right here is a trap game, and obviously Ole Miss, just like they would against Kentucky, probably want revenge on Florida for knocking them out of the playoff race last year, Ole Miss was number 9 in the country. They go on the road, and a victory against Florida would have given them their what would have been their ninth victory of the year. And that victory over Ole Miss not only allowed Florida to be bowl eligible, but it knocked Ole Miss out of the playoff race. It gave them that third loss, which they really could not afford to have. And Florida got revenge on Lane Kiffin for trolling Florida after flipping Austin Simmons, who will be projected to be the starting quarterback in this game from Florida, to Oxford. That game, I have them at number 8. Number 7, and this probably would surprise some Gator fans, I have Florida State at number 7. The reason why, now, of course, normally when you're playing Florida State, that game is going to be rated number 5, rated in the top 5 in terms of importance. But the reason why I have that game at number 7 is because I think facing Florida State at the end of the season, you don't know what team you're going to get in Florida State. You don't know how much better they're going to be better than what they were last year, but they can't be much worse than what they were last year. And you just don't know what information you're going to have about this Florida State team heading into the game. And I think by that point, you should probably have a pretty good indication of whether or not you're going to be in the playoffs or not, because it's all the way at the end of the season. And if you're in and if you're going to be competing for the SEC title game, a loss of FSU is not going to hurt you because they're an ACC opponent. So because of that, I put them 7th. And quite frankly, I hate FSU more than any other UF rival. But with all the games that you have on here, to me, the Florida State game is not even close to being your most important, or certainly not your toughest. Number 6, the Texas Longhorns. The reason why I put the Texas Longhorns at number 6 is because of the factors of number one, the teams that you have ahead, the teams that you're going to be playing both before and after them. Arch Manning, you don't know what Arch Manning is going to look like. Steve Sarkisian's a very good coach and has done a great job of building the Texas program. It's the first time that the Longhorns have ever played in the Swamp. Last year was the first time the Gators have ever visited. I believe it's called Memorial Stadium, or maybe that's another team. It's the first time last year was the first time Florida was on the road at Texas, Austin, Texas. And in that game, Texas blew out Florida. But Florida had a bunch of injuries on both sides of the ball, and they didn't have DJ Lagway at the quarterback position. So I'm not sure if that's a real fair estimate of how Florida can really stack up against Texas. In this game, it's much earlier in the season, so there's a more likelihood that DJ Lagway will be playing in this game, and both teams will be more at full strength heading into the game. Plus, it's coming off a bye week, so Florida will at least have a couple of weeks to prepare for it. I have the game at number 6. At number 5, I have Tennessee. Now, why would I put Tennessee above Texas? It's because it's the famous win streak that the Gators have over the Tennessee Vols in the Swamp. It's at a critical point in the season where you're trying to compete for the playoff race, or could possibly compete for SEC competition, and it's playing Texas right before Florida State. Having 2 back-to-back big rivalries like that could mentally fatigue your team heading into the official college football playoff committee, or if you're playing in the SEC title game, having 2 big rivals back to back could potentially mentally fatigue your team heading into that game. And Tennessee, Josh Heupel has had more success against Florida than all the coaches Tennessee has had this century, and I don't think that's going to be an easy matchup. He seems to find ways to win against Florida, even though Florida does have opportunities to get an upset and steal a victory against Tennessee. The Tennessee matchup, to me, kind of scares me a little bit. I have that number 5. Number 4, Texas A&M. I say number 4 because to me it's the final game of that big four stretch, in which Florida plays LSU on the road, Miami on the road, Texas at home, and then Texas A&M on the road as well. And Billy Napier really needs some signature road victories. That's the reason why I have LSU and Miami rated near the top, along with Texas A&M. And Texas A&M came into the Swamp and just absolutely obliterated Florida at the line of scrimmage. Now, Texas A&M lost 3 defensive linemen that were a part of that game to the NFL. Shamar Stewart, who got drafted by the Bengals. Shamar Turner, who got drafted by the Chicago Bears. Nico Overton, who got drafted by the Carolina Panthers. Those guys are not going to be there. Florida's going to have more footage on Marcel Reed, who came in and just absolutely terrorized the Florida defense. Texas A&M should be a lot healthier heading into that game this past season as well, because they had some key injuries um, heading into that Week 30 matchup in 2024. That's why I have that at number 4. And like I said, it's a very that 4 game stretch right there: LSU, Miami, Texas, and Texas A&M. That's going to be a very key. Going to give it's going to give a clear indication of what kind of football team Florida is going to be heading down the stretch. At number 3, Miami. Last year was the worst loss in Florida, and the worst season opening loss in Florida Gator history. The worst season opener in Florida Gator history, losing on the road to an in-state rival, getting blown out 41-17. Easily the worst loss of Billy Napier's career. He needs to make up for that big time and not just beat Miami, but also beat them convincingly like they did you. Because right now you can't tell recruits, hey, come pick us over Miami when you're out here getting pushed around like that in your house by Miami. I remember after the game, Miami players were walking up to the recruits and say, hey, don't pick Florida, come to Miami. Don't go to Florida, come to Miami. You just saw who was the better team on this football field. And Billy Napier really needs to get that victory back and really need to get some revenge for what happened last year. At number 2, LSU on the road. I think it's the most important road game of Billy Napier's career because the Death Valley is going to be late at night. That game is going to be played at 7:30. It's going to be a massive, massive game for both head coach Brian Kelly and Billy Napier. Billy Napier, like I said, does not have a signature victory underneath his belt, and he really needs to start winning some big games on the road, which he has not done. He has a 5-12 record away from the swamp, whether it's true road games or neutral site games. That's not good enough. And LSU, I think getting a victory in LSU in the most hostile environment in the SEC, that would do very big wonders for Billy Napier, perception-wise, for him as a coach, perception-wise for the Florida Gators football team in the eyes of the College Football Playoff Committee when they come around, and also recruiting as well, because Florida and LSU battle a lot for the same players. LSU goes for guys in the state of Florida. Florida goes for guys in the state of Louisiana, and they obviously recruit within their own state. Florida has to get some big victories on the road, and LSU is the biggest place to start at. And it's week 3, so it's right after the LIU and USF game. So you're going to have a couple of weeks to work out the bugs in both your offense and your defense and special teams before you head into Death Valley that Saturday night. And then the number 1 game, of course, is Georgia, the Florida-Georgia rivalry. Georgia, historically the biggest rivals to Florida, and of course in current times the biggest rivals to Florida, because Kirby Smart has come in and have bullied the Gators since he's coached at UGA every opportunity. He hates Florida. He's not secretive about his hate for Florida. Georgia players have constantly said his best pregame speeches and best halftime speeches are when they're playing Florida compared to any other opponent. It derives from the Steve Spurrier days, because Steve Spurrier went on the road into Georgia and blew out Georgia, and went up by tried and ran up the score to get 50 points, and then Kirby Smart was on the football team that day, and that really infuriated him, and it conceived his hatred for Florida, and he has taken that out on the Gators since he has come back and been a head coach for the Georgia Bulldogs in Athens. He blows out Florida every opportunity to get. Florida had a chance to beat him last year. DJ Lagway obviously went down when the score was 10-6. No shade to Aiden Warner. He did the best that he could. It's a tough spot for you to ask him to do. But once DJ Lagway went down, Georgia did not have any fear of Florida's ability to throw the football down the field. And I think with DJ Lagway in the game, they're not going to, load up in the box the way that they did when Aiden Warner was in the matchup. Florida still did a pretty good job of running the football on Georgia in that game, but the offense's dynamic was just not as explosive as it was when DJ Lagway went out. And I'm sure for DJ Lagway, he would love to get redemption and beat Georgia on the road. And I think beating Georgia would be the biggest win of Napier's career, at least off-season perception-wise. We'll see how good of a team Georgia is. They're losing a lot of productive players, but Georgia has become the new Alabama. The way Alabama under Nick Saban would just not only would just recycle and reload NFL talent. That's what Georgia's become. They've become a football factory. You just look at the NFL draft classes from 22 to 23 to 24 to 25. You see a lot of red and black players. Players from the red and black going in the first round, going in the second round, going in the third round, especially to the Philadelphia Eagles. But that's the game I think is the most important to Billy Napier's time is the Georgia game. Of course, I have LIU 12, Mississippi State 10, USF 11, number 9 Kentucky, Ole Miss 8, Florida State 7, Texas 6, Tennessee 5, A&M 4, Miami 3, LSU 2, and Georgia 1. Agree, disagree? Tell me in the comments.